should start, so let's call the October 13 meeting agenda to order, rather. And we'll start with a moment of silence, please, and then followed by the invocation and the pledge. Let's have a moment of silence. Charlie?
Lord, as we come to you, we're so thankful, Lord, to live in a state and a country that we do where we have the freedoms, Lord, to farm and do your will. Lord, I pray for our government. I pray for each farmer that's trying to make a living and feed our country. Just watch over them in these times that we're living in, Lord. Just be with them, and we lift them all up to you. Be with this committee, Lord, as we do the work, Lord, for the county of Oconee. Help us to make the right decisions for the farmers in this county and the agriculture in the area. In Jesus' name I ask. Amen.
Amen.
Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, minutes are on the back. Let's take a quick look, see if there's any comments or amendments.
Just a quick question about the structure of the minutes. Are we supposed to be putting in members present, the present members at the meeting? It just came to me.
So up at the top, I typically do whoever wasn't here, I'll put absent.
I
next
see,
to
I
it.
see.
It's okay.
I noticed that
Got it.
on there.
For some reason, when I saw the header board members, I just assumed it was just listing
No,
the board.
that's okay. I try to make it consistent as far as like formatting for all three boards and commissions. So that's why it looks a little bit different than when you send it to me.
Got it.
Also consolidates it a little bit, so it's not extra wording, so that's good. We've had good attendance, everybody.
Absolutely.
Make a motion to accept.
Motion to accept. Have a second? I'll second. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Say aye.
Unanimous.
All right, any opposed? Okay, good, thank you, Charlie. All righty. Farmland protection, Mr. Carr gave us a good presentation on farmland protection. Just, we need to take that to disseminate that information as best we can to whatever groups we can. Did talk to a lot of people at the fair, so let them know some of the options. Any, have any comments or thoughts on it?
Did it clear up any questions about that you had regarding how it works within the deed? And
Oh, Mr. Carter, you talking about?
Richard Carr, yeah. You had just, I guess it was more related to the Conservation Bank than to the easement itself. But I was just curious if it cleared anything up for you in regards to its permanency on the deed.
He said it only lasts one generation, but I disagree with that.
Okay.
He said if you do your own deed restriction and it only lasts one generation, that's not correct. So But I mean, is that what you was asking me about the deed?
Yeah, I was just curious about this in perpetuity. What is the part that is in perpetuity that we're conserving?
I think what has come to light in all of this is that in perpetuity, the way I understand it, that's a deep hole to go down if you want to go down it. It's like going down a rabbit hole, but basically, as long as everybody's still in agreement, in perpetuity lasts forever. And I think there's statute, especially in the McMahon case, where that has already been proven. And so there's precedence where that deed restriction with the Right to Farm Act and the fact that they actually did take it to court, and that deed restriction was upheld. I think if there's a deed restriction and somebody wants to argue with the farmer about it, I think you could go precedence with that case, and it went all the way up to the South Carolina Supreme Court, I think. It didn't get returned. It hasn't been overturned. It's still upheld. My thought process is that deed restriction's gonna hold because there's precedence because of their case that they fought. That deed restriction, they couldn't undo it. It was done once that deed restriction was there. So I think that helps on that end. I think where the confusion came in for me, and I didn't say much about it, David, what he was asking, I was listening to and agreeing with. I think the issue came in, Tessa, whenever they started returning money and taking things away. And I think that's where, and I think they use the term legally, that they can claw it back. And I think they can if everybody involved that started it decides to change it.
So the person who sold it has to also agree.
Yeah, and matter of fact, that was followed up.
Gotcha.
I didn't know if, I may have not addressed that, I can't remember, but.
I was not in attendance in the last meeting, so I would have missed it.
But when you make a deal, just like any deal, both parties have to agree to the deal or agree to rules of the deal. And if the rules get broken, then you broke a contract. So I found out that, the owner, the original owner who sold that property up there, he was contacted later on. He sold it with the intentions of having a conservation easement on it. I talked to him personally on the phone. A couple of months, 3 or 4 months later, he got a phone call from Upstate Forever and says, hey, we got Forestry Service interested in buying it, but they won't buy it with that deed restriction. So he agreed to take it off. So there is no conservation easement up there right now. But you got to let both parties know when you're changing stuff. I mean, that's just the way it is. And actually, the county went back and confirmed that they changed the deed without talking to that guy. And the guy said, I'm okay with it. That's what my problem was. How do you change a deed when the other party is not aware the deed's being changed? Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So anyway, he agreed to take the deed off. He thought that the Forest Service already bought it. He said the Forest Service has bought it, and I said, no, sir, they haven't. He said, what? They haven't bought it? I said, no, sir, the Forest Service does not own that property. It still belongs to Upstate Forever. So that was why I brought all that up, is because that land's not under an easement, but yet easement money was used to make it into an easement, and it wasn't in an easement. So.
Was that just a county easement? Or what kind of easement was that? That's not.
It's from the Conservation Bank. Upstate Forever is a land trust, and Nature Land Trust partnered with them to buy the 155-acre farm up there. When they come and got $61,000 from the county to pool up to get money to buy it, they got $261,000 from the South Carolina Conservation Bank, and they got $20,000 from another called Betty Smith Foundation. There was three different people, county, state, and this Betty Smith Foundation. I may be saying that wrong, Ellis Smith, something like that. Well, they got all the money up, bought the land. About 3 months later, Upstate Forever and Natureland Trust went back to the county conservation bank and said, hey, we got Forestry Service might be wanting to buy it, but they won't buy it with this deed restriction on it. And they agreed, the county conservation bank agreed to, take the restriction off, but yet they kept the conservation money. In my opinion, Upstate Forever should have wrote a $61,000 check and give it back to Oconee County, but they didn't. It was 2.5 years later before they finally gave the money back.
What was the restrictions? I mean, we saw what you had, but I can't remember what they.
Well, whatever the Upstate and the landowner agreed to, the restriction was, I remember, you couldn't build a house on it, because I know a farmer that was wanting to buy it. And when he found out he couldn't build a house on it, or any kind of barns that he wanted, he backed out on the deal. And that's when I guess the Forestry Service was wanting to look into it. But I know he couldn't build a house on it. He told me, I talked to the farmer who was wanting to buy it. He said they told him that he couldn't build a house and couldn't do a lot of things that he wanted to do on it.
It basically had the developmental rights restricted. Like, I think there was even some restriction on what timber could be cut, how much could be
Yeah.
put in pasture. It was mainly developmental rights restrictions. But I think those are kind of, they're catered to whoever's selling and how they're doing the conservation.
This is what Richard was talking about with the Farm Bureau. It's nothing like that. All you're doing is selling your development rights. You still farm it. You can go, I drawed out where I might want to build a house, or some of my kids might want to build a house later, and it's marked out. And you can build barns, you can build another chicken house or two, whatever you want to build, but it's just, it can't go for housing developments or anything
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
It can't be.
I think his was just more restricted. And the Forest Service doesn't buy land with restrictions on it. They just don't, because they want to do dove fields or grow certain types of
And I
things.
think Forestry Service too feels that they can't buy land with restrictions on it for the simple fact that it's U.S. forestry and it's Avalon taxpaying dollars. And therefore, they just can't do that.
And there was a foundation called the Whetstone Creek Foundation, who was opposing it, the Forestry Service having it, because all the talk about the dove field, and they were concerned about the lead from shot shells getting in the ground and then getting in Whetstone Creek. And so that kind of, I don't know all the backdoor stuff that happened, but it stopped. So Forestry Service, that was in 2000 and, oh my gosh. It's been 6 years since that happened, and the Forestry Service still hadn't bought it. So it belongs to Natureland Trust, but there's no conservation easement on it, and conservation easement money was used to buy it. That was why I was wanting to do checks and balances, because, if we're gonna support giving somebody $500,000 or whatever, then I think we should be stewards of the money, but we're not the conservation bank, but the conservation bank should be stewards of that money.
So where
That's
does
just my
that
thoughts.
stand now?
We'll look into it.
We had a motion to invite the Conservation Bank board member and a legal person to a meeting. Was I supposed to do that, or
We had identified,
we didn't say who? I don't think who would do that.
I think we identified who we needed to invite, but
Oh, and let me add one more thing, Tessa. The owner, the original owner of the land, it was, he didn't follow up either. I don't think you was here when I brought up the deeds where it should have shown that he was willing to change the deed. The county attorney called him, and he's supposed to come and put it in the register of deeds that, yes, he agrees to take it off, but he never did. And that's why I couldn't find any records that he did. But now he's supposed to come down and do that, that's what I was told, and I haven't checked in the past 3 weeks to a month if he did or not.
Okay.
But it's neither here nor there, if he did or didn't, but just the fact that he didn't record it, that he agreed to take the easement off,
Right.
which, should have been done.
Trying to find that notes from that meeting.
It was the chair, whoever that was, and 2023, I remember that. Let's see, baby.
Okay, so we need to send an invitation.
Yeah, someone from the 2023 board that was present at the time was mentioned.
I think we identified their attorney, trying to think of his name. Was it Andy Smith?
Andy Smith is not on the board anymore, but he would probably have the info, and I can talk to him about.
I think he was in 2020, that name stands out. I don't have my notes either, Tessa, with me.
But how do we, I'm just trying to think, I'm confused here. How do we advertise easements when it's gonna take a lot of money? We have 900 farms in Oconee County that census shows. What if 500 of them want to be an easement tomorrow? I'm just doing a hypothetical, but what if? Then they say, I want my money, I'm gonna apply. What do we do? It's not our place, it's Conservation Bank's issue, but
Well, it's not the Conservation Bank's issue, it's, they need to go to a land trust to, I think, is their avenue of getting it done. The bank just holds the money, right? They don't hold the easements.
the Nature
So-
Land Trust come to Conservation Bank to get the money.
Right, so the Nature Land Trust is
The easements are held with the Register of Deeds, and the gatekeeper is Soil and Water. And they have to be reviewed, my understanding is once a year. Is that correct, Ed?
I don't know that I've got the information on that, but I can certainly check into it.
Let me see if I believe that is correct, Tessa. They have to do, because we have quite a bit, we have several farms, and not just farms, but like timber tracts and other things that have easements on them, and they have to be reviewed ever so often, and I think it's yearly, if I'm not mistaken. I'm almost
I
100.
believe I've heard that somewhere too, Kim.
So they're the governmental oversight. The easement is a personal decision that you tailor, and usually you use someone like the Farm Bureau or the Conservancy or the Nature Land Trust to help you figure out what your easement's gonna be. And then they, like the Farm Bureau, uses a lot of the state's conservation bank money
Yes.
to access to help offset the price reduction value of the land, for the development rights. And then the Farm Bureau they'll only do it for certain size land that's agriculturally significant. Someone like maybe the Chattooga Conservancy will take smaller plots of land, they'll do like an acre. If it's culturally significant, ecologically significant, they have all these different entities have different criteria that they are looking for in land that they would value as going into an easement. So your land may not qualify.
Right, and like you said, it may be a 20-acre farm wouldn't qualify.
Maybe not, if you want to go through the Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
It depends on where the land lays. So according to what I'm looking at, yes. Soil and Water are the ones that are to review the easements. And the Conservation Bank Board does have, I guess, obligation to make sure they have all the information of that, along with Upstate Forever and other organization. But the final approval depends on the easements and purposes. And the Soil and Water Conservation, they oversee all of them, along with some of our watershed ponds
But they don't,
and all of that.
but they're not the ones holding the money.
No,
They're just approving, yes,
After
this
it's
is
already-
ecologically significant, yes, we haven't breached any of our
right, after
easement
it's been done.
stipulations, yeah.
Mhm. They have the paperwork after it's been done, and they go out with, I think, DNR. DNR has natural resources. Department of Natural Resources has people that go out with them, and they look at what they're supposed to be doing, and if it appears they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, then they check off landowner signs, they sign, and we go on for another year. So NRCS has a lot to do with that. Of course, we're not getting any of them to come see us anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's probably the backup is everywhere. It's at the Farm Bureau. There's applications that are still,
Yeah.
like they're not up to date on that.
Right.
So it's a process. If you want your land to go in an easement and everyone wants to do it today, they're gonna be waiting a long time to get it approved.
Well, they have to find funding, and where that funding's gonna come from, normally, and especially on larger tracts of land, it's gonna come from a lot of places.
Right.
It's not gonna come from just one source.
Yeah. I think Mr. Carr with Farm Bureau said they had $9 million in their funds. I'm pretty sure I'm correct. He said 9 million and some odd change. And, but if you're talking, that's a lot of money to me. But if you're talking on a scale from the whole state, it's not a lot of money.
No, but it's not purchasing the land, it's offsetting the cost of the development rights to the land. So they're not,
They call it, there's a certain value. I'm trying to think the proper word, conservation value. There's a value of the land and there's a conservation value of the land. And that's what they determine the amount of money they're gonna give somebody. But like Mr. Keys, he got what, almost $1 million? It was 900 and some thousand. I mean, compared to the 9 million, I'm just saying, over a statewide thing, where else would money come from?
private donors,
See, we're not getting a lot of Oconee though, are we? A lot of private donors.
Duke Power, yeah,
Keep Power
theirs
pulled out,
goes
you remember? We
places.
gave
Yeah,
it
but-
up.
Yeah, but they give $600,000 several years ago. And, again, when you're talking about a lot of land, $600,000 won't buy a lot of land.
No.
I'm
That's
just, I'm
what
just,
they're
I'm
looking-
just looking at dollars and cents in my mind, that's how I think. How is this gonna work? If we're gonna advertise, every farmer in this state needs to have their land in the easement, how is that gonna happen? Financially.
The more farmers who want, the more interest that there is for it, maybe it'll
Maybe it'll happen.
cause more things to.
Yeah. I mean, it might happen. I don't know,
The thing is, you don't have to go through one of those
Right.
banks.
Do it
in
all by
order-
yourself.
Yes. You can set up your own trust, and it can be for you and, your family to tailor to your needs, and then it can go down generation after generation. It's just gonna have that deed restriction, and it's gonna be in a trust, and, who owns the trust and who controls the trust. And if it's Charlie's trust and it's all of Charlie's farm, and then they decide to split it and do two separate trusts, then they can do what they want between the kids. But
Yeah.
it's still protected because it's in a trust.
Yeah.
It's just, they're not getting the developmental rights. They have no developmental rights taken away from that family. They make their own decisions. At the same time, they're not getting any of the money. There's nobody putting a deed restriction from outside of that family on that farm. So, we can, I think your idea, David, of protecting the farm with a deed restriction and your private trust is key. If I was gonna tell a farmer that didn't want to have, soil and water coming in every year, reviewing their stuff, making sure they didn't build a house over here when they wasn't supposed to instead of over here, or whatever their reasoning was, I'm just hypothetical, then I would encourage them, if they wanted to protect their farm, to go sit down with their kids, figure it out, set up a trust, get it
Yeah.
on the deed and record it at the Register of Deeds, and you're protected.
Especially the 20 or 30 acre farm, like Tessa said, they might not
They
qualify
may
for
not
that money.
fit
They
in
gotta
any
do something.
category. Yeah.
And the I know a deed restriction works. I know it works. I'm very confident it works.
And that's what I'm saying, there's
So that's,
precedent.
that you can, that's one way you can go about, I mean, there's just many different ways to go about
And
doing
it
it.
costs you an hour of a lawyer's time
Right.
to write it up and put it in the deed.
Right,
And then go record it and you're done.
Exactly. And I won't talk about this till I'm blue in the face. I know a lot of people don't wanna hear it. But everybody heard James Coley before he left. I said, if you had your farm zoned farming, agriculture, and a hotshot developer wanted to come into that community and build 100 houses, I said, James, what would you do? He said, we'd deny them the building permits. Boom.
And then that's where though they go before it, and here's where your deed restriction will override that
Yes.
on that piece of property, is in the fact, if they go before the Board of Zoning Appeals and they are allowed to rezone, to redistrict, to redo, then that's where that would change. And so, I mean, I agree with you, zoning can help the farmer. But if the right developer gets a hold of it and he decides to go before the Board of Zoning and Appeals, they can overturn that zoning.
They can. Yep.
And so then we're back to your deed restriction.
Yep.
Where there's already precedence in the court that deed
Yeah.
restriction with the Right to Farm Act is gonna hold. It's gonna hold precedence over,
I mean, look at the Nevels for an example. They're not, their land's not in any nature land upstate forever trust. It's their trust.
exactly.
that's one way to do it.
And, I mean, and that's how you can protect yourself.
Yeah. I talked to Jess for a long time about that.
Yep.
Their family is their trust.
Yes. And that, honestly, if somebody was asking and they started with, maybe not in Charlie's case, but they started with, well, but I have 4 kids and I have one that may want to do this and this, and then do your own trust. That way, nobody's gonna come in here and restrict you. You all sit down and figure it out.
That's right.
And then you've got your deed restriction and you can go from there.
And I don't want y'all to think I'm against any conservation easement.
No.
If that's what you want to do with your land, I'm worried about the 30, 40, 50 acre farmer who's just as much a farmer as a 1,000 acre farmer. You know, they might not yield as much, but they are still a farmer. And that's a good way to do it if they don't apply for easements. You know,
I mean, they're still protecting themselves.
yeah.
So, and the deed restriction will stand even if the zoning got appealed. So, you know, we're back to your deed restriction.
Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's complicated too. It's very complicated. It's as complicated as you want it to be, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's good for our Old County farmers. They'll do 20 acres. The Farm Bureau will.
They would?
Sir. They had it at 150 and they went down, I think they went down to 50 and then I think they do 25 or whatever now.
Wow,
They really dropped it down from the last time I heard the presentation.
That's
If
good.
he fixing to do mine, I mean, I could even add to it. Next year, if I buy more property, I can add it to my trust, whatever land I bought. It don't have to touch, it don't have to, it's just,
You just have to agree to some certain things to do on your land, right?
It gives them a layer of protection, yeah. That's,
and they will back you in case that there is one thing on the eminent domain. If they wanna run a road or a power line or right of way or whatever, they wanna come across that land, the Farm Bureau has lawyers for that.
That's like the added layer of having your land in an easement with an entity. They typically have more resources to help you protect it if something
Cause I
like
was
that came
concerned
up.
about that. Cause I know with some easement, we even read them right here, you know, and it said eminent domain, y'all remember that?
actually,
That one,
that's
I think that one
in
that you had, that one you were talking about.
Natureland Trust, it does say that. Like, I don't know that they would be able to totally protect you with eminent domain, the way theirs read. I think
Yeah.
it was it Upstate River and Natureland Trust that we were reading that had that clause? I think.
I was reading, the only thing that I was reading the thing of was the conservation bank.
The conservation. I think they've all got that in there because I know some friends in Tennessee and they lost their conservation
Yeah.
easement to eminent domain.
There's nothing that can stop eminent domain, but the
Yeah,
lawyers can make it real complicated.
And they can
Yeah.
make it hard for them,
Yeah.
but, and that was a TVA thing, but they, you know, I have one friend up there, she says, when it's eminent domain, you might as well just
Yeah.
get ready to negotiate the best deal you can get, because you're gonna lose. But it happened to their farm 3 times. Now, they're close into Knoxville and, you know,
Those
UT.
public utilities get involved, you in for a fight, buddy.
They were, it was TVA. So, I mean, I think you have to know what you're dealing with there. Now, a developer, that's one story, but when it's,
The public, for the greater good of the public.
that's when it becomes an issue.
Yep.
That, the big water line going to Greenville, the big power
Yep.
lines taken, you know, for the grid, I mean, that's when
The sewer.
that one can be. You know, those are the ones that are gonna, yeah.
Very
That's
good.
a tough card to fight.
Yeah.
Good discussion. Anything else? Y'all have a good understanding of it. It is complicated. It's, to me, very complicated. So, next is the Farm Center. They completed a successful Heritage Fair last week. Had about 8,000 in attendance, and if it weren't for a couple of rainy sessions, they would have had, they were looking for 10,000. They had about 8. And it was real successful. They had more vendors. They had different shows, little different acts and displays and shows. And of course, the vendors were there. They were good. It was a good fair, well attended, and they look forward to the next one. Which the next event was only a week later. They had last Saturday about 500 people at the Native Plant Festival. They report to me, they told me, and so that was good. They had a good attendance at the Honeybee Festival before that, and a few Sundays ago they had the praise and worship service up there, and they had about 2,000 people for it. So a lot going on. They have more things planned. For instance, the farmer's market's done for the year, but they're looking at doing a live nativity in December, and also a holiday market sometime in December. They would like to get with us and do an ag roundtable with the community and whatnot, and discuss agricultural things and events that are going on, and who's doing what and how we can work together. And they also asked if we would like to join them in some kind of joint project or venture or initiative that we can work on as a board to help support them. Whatever it might be, it might come out of the round table, it might, whatever's identified that we can work with them on, they're looking to work together. So anything we can do to help them, they'd like to do that. So I thought maybe the December or the January meeting might be since we both have meetings on similar nights, we might have a co-meeting and invite the public. December, January. He just said during the winter, so,
For the round table
round table, yeah.
and make that a meeting or?
Could, because they meet, reason we can't go to each other's meeting is we meet at the same time.
They moved theirs the first Monday.
They did
They
meet
did.
last week, yes, that's right, so.
Yeah, they moved theirs.
So potentially December due or January.
I personally think if we're going to do, if it's early enough in December, you'd be better off to do December, because January, we have to turn over to elect new officers for
Yeah.
us.
Start
And we have to
everything.
set everything new there. If you were wanting to do a joint venture with them and you're wanting to make plans, you would be better off to host a roundtable in December early, though, because people get busy and forget. That way you could have plans, you need a facilitator, you need to be able to have people say, you know, you need to have a plan of action of what you want to cover and see what they're thinking, and then look at the 2026 calendar while you're there. Light refreshments, usually get people there. That's just Kim's opinion, that
This round table though would be kind of like they're already there. Are you thinking of it as like two boards getting together and talking, or two boards plus?
public.
Plus, public,
He said
Okay.
plus public.
yeah.
Okay.
I just chose those dates because we kind of have those
Yeah.
already in the system.
So maybe talk to him about early December round
December
table.
first on Monday.
The first Monday of December.
I agree, it needs to be earlier in the month because things.
Yes.
Yeah, things it'll get hectic in a hurry, but whatever you do, what do we need to do?
And
So
our
it
meeting
wouldn't
will
be
be
able to
the
be
8th.
the first Monday in December because we have planning commission first Monday in December, or first Monday of the month.
Okay. Could we go off-site and go second Monday?
We
And
always do second Monday.
Could we go off-site and just do another day if it's agreed to? I'm
We
not
could
the
also
chairman,
just
I
do the
just.
second Monday. We could try.
Yeah, I
Should we
would
try
say
doing the second Monday?
the second
and-
Monday, and then if you're wanting it to be off-site, that's fine. I would just need one of y'all to kind of nail down a venue.
It would be at the farm center.
If-
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
he said to do a collaboration with them and invite the
Yeah.
public. So if
Right.
we're going to do that in a roundtable, then it would need to be there.
Okay, yeah,
And it
that's
would
fine.
need to be hosted with refreshments, invite the public. Rex, I'm sorry, you're the chairman. You talk. I'll
No,
shut up.
I was thinking have it at the farm center too. I think that's the place to have it. The date, just whatever convenient, whatever works.
I would be a proponent for lumping it as a meeting, since December is hectic
And
anyway.
you don't want to create another meeting.
You don't want another meeting, and it is a planning, it's kind of a strategy, figuring out what's gonna happen in the next year.
So if planning commission is here
On
the first Monday, and the farm center's meeting the first Monday, are you saying that we can't meet there the first Monday?
We wouldn't have our,
We wouldn't
Yeah,
have our
our
staff.
staff.
Our staff.
Okay.
Well,
can y'all split up?
we'd have to split up, yes.
Could you go with us to the farm center?
I can, we probably need to make sure, because if anybody wants to go to both, then you're putting, you see what I'm saying? If somebody wants to be at planning commission and at ag board,
Gotcha.
What is the date of the second Monday? It might not even be that
December
far.
8th.
They didn't come here.
Oh, that's not even that far into December, the eighth.
The eighth.
So could you ask about the eighth
Yes.
of
Could we have them
December?
come here?
For a round table
It's
with
not,
the public?
it's not real convenient here. When we've tried them here before, it doesn't work as well. You've been at your farm cafe, you see how it fills up. A lot of people will just come when it's off-site. I mean, Tessa, we couldn't even get everybody in. It was really crowded in Mountain Rest. I mean, and that's the thing, when we go off-site, we do get a lot more feedback from our public because they want to come engage, and we're going to them. I think that's the difference. I think they feel like we are making an effort to come to them, and we're not sitting up here behind a desk,
I can make that one, but.
It would be the
Farm
same,
Bureau annual,
Charlie, it
Myrtle
would,
Beach meeting.
or are you gonna be out of town?
Are you out of town the 8th?
For the first, I would.
The
But I can
second
do the
Monday
8th.
of December
I
would
can
be
do
our
the 8th.
regular.
The 8th is our regular
Yeah.
meeting.
I can make it.
You'll be
Can
back.
you ask him if we can do the 8th? David, I'm so sorry, I'm not leaving y'all out.
No, I mean, y'all throwing dates out is fine with me. I just don't, I'd have to look at my calendar, but that's fine to make a date.
The 8th is our regular meeting day, and if they're wanting to partner with us, I'm with Tessa, we can offer them the 8th at their place.
Can more than 3 of us go down there?
Well, it would be a meeting.
We're advertising it as
It
a
would be
meeting.
our
Yeah,
meeting.
because there would be it would be a quorum.
It'd be our meeting at the farm center,
Yeah.
just like we've done before.
Yeah.
And it would be advertised to the public, so then they could
So they
come.
can, yeah. Yeah, I threw out December or January question mark when we were texting back and forth, so I'll say, how about the 8th?
Yeah, January is when we elect all new, so if we were gonna try to plan something to collaborate with them, we would need to do it in December,
Yeah, it'd be
I
best,
think.
it'd be best, because
Then we could be
January's,
thinking about stuff
Yeah.
and then
And
get
then
started
we
in
will
January.
re-elect officers in January, yeah.
I like it. I'll
So
ask.
do we need to make a motion for that? I'll make a motion for, Rex to, Mr. Blanton to, coordinate with David Daniel
Daniel.
Rothel? Rothel for a collaborative meeting in December
For our regular 8th, for the 8th,
for the 8th
at the pharmacy.
at the farm center.
So, we might want to shorten it for the record. So the motion is, if I heard you right, to coordinate with the farm center for the 8th for a
Yes.
collaborative meeting, public meeting
Yes,
at the farm center.
yes.
That's the motion on the table.
That's the motion. That's my motion.
Coordinate with Mr. Rothel, December 8th, meeting public at the farm center.
Yes. Not great grammar, but.
I'm trying to shorten it, so forgive. So that's a motion.
Got a
Joint
second?
meeting with the farm board at the farm center on
Our
8th
regular meeting.
8th of December. Yeah,
I'll second.
second, okay.
I'm in favor.
All in favor?
All in favor? I was waiting to see if he had any questions on the
Oh,
wording.
gotcha.
Okay, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Unanimous.
Any opposed? None. So, okay, we'll ask about December 8th. That's great. They're looking to work together with some, they've got a lot of good initiatives going, so look forward to meeting with them. Signage, I don't have any report on the signage. I don't have anything to report right now. Except Nate's got some draft, some wording draft, but we've kind of given him the 3 possibilities of the wording and trying to hone that down and make it fit, and I don't know exactly where it is in the process. So, district reports.
I've got nothing.
I have nothing.
Farm Center was the farm fair, the Heritage Fair was the big event in District 3, so I don't know of anything else.
Well, are we still going to get some legal advice about easements and stuff. You know,
We
talked
had
about.
made a motion to do that, so that's still on the,
Yeah, I saw that in looking back over the notes, and I don't know, it wasn't clear who "we" is. Is it "we"
well, you're the chair, so I think it,
or?
by default, who is the person who would ask him?
You can instruct Elise or, Ed, sorry, my mind was going, I was going James, and I knew I was wrong. Or Ed, to ask, the legal counsel would be, David Root, who is still contracted to either video in or to be here, so that that could take place.
The person I was going to invite to the November meeting, he is an attorney, and he was the chair of the Conservation Bank Board. So he might have the info that we need to follow up, just to kind of figure out how the Conservation Bank Board was able to do what they did.
And I guess the other question is, Mr. Root is the county's attorney, but is there well, we know there is an attorney that is on staff for Nature Land Trust. We know who that is. But I'm kind of with David, who is and I think he's good. I don't have anything negative to say about Mr. Smith. I guess my question is, who is an attorney that handles real estate, land, conservation, easements, etc., that is Switzerland, that doesn't have a dog in anybody's bite, that can just say, this is the way it is, this is what this is, and this is what this is. Instead of, while I think all of those attorneys are good in their own rights, if I was talking to you from one of the land trusts, I'd probably talk to you differently than if I was talking to you from a farmer's perspective or from forestry. But I don't know who that would be. I think the motion was for it to be Mr. Root, if
Yes,
I
it was.
understood correctly. So maybe between Mr. Root and Mr. Smith, if they're both here, they can answer all the questions and legal advice.
Do you mind pulling up the minutes from August?
I think it was Mr. Root who
Just wanted to
requested.
see what the motion.
I don't remember remember anyone named, but I assumed
I don't
county.
think we said a name,
Right,
I
assumed.
think we just said county attorney, which is Mr. Root.
On his 11th minutes.
Who would be the one that we
Scroll
need
down.
to,
Okay.
talk about these easements?
All right, motion made by Mr. McMahon to invite a member of the Oconee Conservation Bank
And an
to
attorney.
interpret, and an attorney to interpret legal information. Second,
attorney?
we did not have anyone specifically
Say, Rick?
listed for either the Conservation Bank or the attorney, or for who is gonna be doing
I
the
know we
inviting.
discussed names. I think it just got shortened when we did the minutes. Because I know Smith was discussed and Root was discussed.
I think it would be an attorney who has experience in real estate law.
So I do know that we did ask Mr. Root to attend, whether it's in person or calling in. He just was not available.
We may not have given him much notice, but yeah, I put down Mr. Root in the
I
notes.
think we said county
Yeah.
attorney, so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was what was.
he was out of town, I think.
Okay. So it was followed up with then, and he just wasn't available. So we wanna keep following up with it?
Yeah, because we already, voted on it, so yeah.
I think it would be good, and I think this is the confusion that's going on is between a land trust and an easement that the county provides or the state. The Farm Bureau Land Trust is cut and dried. It is what it is.
Yeah, and they had nothing to do with
But all the confusion
this.
is like, you know, what David's talking about, what they done with the Forever, Upstate Forever, whatever it is.
Yeah, Upstate Forever, and they
Nature Land
partnered
Trust.
with Nature Land
There's so
Trust.
many of those till it's confusing, but.
Yeah.
And like Tessa said, there's not even funding available for most of those now, I don't think.
Yeah, there's not. Well, just like, see, the thing that I couldn't understand is they got 61 grand from the Oconee Conservation Bank to make that deal happen in 2000 and, gosh, y'all don't have my paperwork in front of me, 2000 and,
It's like 21,
22.
22,
20,
right in
yeah.
there. It was a long time ago.
yeah, only last year is when they give that $61,000 back. That 61,000 was held up for almost 2.5, 3 years before it was given back.
But the land still hasn't, nothing's happened to the land yet. Nothing's
No,
been
but
done
there's-
to the land, nothing's happened to the land.
I-
What is that?
You're right, but, well, I don't know, it was just bought with conservation
It's-
money.
It's a gray area for sure.
And it, the 61,000, in my opinion, should have been given back when they took the easement off. And give it to some other, instead of holding that up for 2.5 years. That's my point I'm trying to make, is,
Well, it makes it hard to explain to people that don't have a clue when they see stuff like that happen. It makes them suspicious. And it makes it hard to I saw something online, I think it was AQD was one of them that was blasting about the way the Conservation Bank was being looked into and looked at. But when you see things like that, most people don't know that, and so it makes it hard to defend that whenever somebody else has been, I'd like to have $62,000 to go play with for a few years. I'll give it back to you later, Tessa. I'm just gonna go do what I want to with it for a few. I mean, that's what I know that's not what the whole deal is, but that's what it appears. To the general public, that would be what they were thinking. That's how it appears. It
So-
doesn't look good. It doesn't pass the smell test.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they've done anything illegal. I'm just,
It just doesn't look good.
61 grand was held up for 2.5 years, what could have been used with somebody who was wanting to get their land in an easement, and the money should have been there to help them do it. It wasn't.
Maybe a 20-acre tract or a 15-acre
20-acre,
tract.
50-acre
One of those
tract.
small tracts might have been all that they would have
Yeah.
gotten.
Yeah,
And that might have been able to have put it over the top to get it.
yeah. Especially when the government's doing it. Especially when the government's doing it. I mean, if it's a private company, it's all different, but
Well,
the government's involved in this.
I guess the Conservation Bank is technically housed under the government. The money is not governmental. The money is private.
Except for what
But it's
came
governed
Except for
by
what
a
came from
governmental
you.
body.
FERC,
Right,
because
right.
of FERC.
Right.
It's approved and disapproved by a governmental body.
Well, I will call Mr. Smith, who was on the board at the time, and we'll see if he's available, and we can follow up again
Mr.
to do a
Wood.
private or an executive session with Mr. Root, right?
I don't know if it would be executive session per se.
If we're
Yeah,
asking for
so-
legal advice, because we're asking him to explain legal advice and I think what David was asking is, what he really wants is, when we are asked as a board and we represent Oconee County, where do we draw the line? Where does the line get drawn on what we say without there being an issue, is the way I understood. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
No, and please help me unconfuse myself too. We are an ag board. Are we an arm of the Conservation Bank? I don't
No,
understand.
No,
No.
we're not.
Because I feel like we're starting to make decisions for a conservation bank, and I'm just drawing questions about if we as ag board are gonna promote this, like the chairman said. I want my ducks in a row before I go telling somebody something ain't right.
Exactly, and so that would be the legal advice we would want, because we are advisory only, and we
Right.
don't wanna cross a
Now, I don't
line.
wanna advise somebody wrong.
And you know, we would always refer them back to the bank. We would always refer them to their attorney. We would always refer them
Right.
somewhere else.
So I would say, maybe send us an email on specifics. Cause I think that maybe, I don't know if he got that last time or not. Of like specific things y'all are wanting to talk about. And if every one of you wants to send an email, that's fine. We can kind of, you know, send something to David with everything that you guys have brought to us, so that he has kind of an idea of what y'all are wanting to discuss prior to the meeting, so that it gives him time to prepare, and also gives him time to say, hey, like, we can't really talk about this, or, not that we can or can't, but, you know, this is something that needs to be an executive session or not.
What
I just feel like if he's giving us, even if it's his opinion and advice and it's legal, that should be almost a attorney-client.
Well, so like comparing it to like planning commission, I mean, he is there to give legal advice for, you know, X, Y, and Z that they're talking about.
Right.
So potentially whatever y'all are wanting to talk about, I would see it as the same.
Right.
I could be wrong, but
I mean, it's ultimately his decision and
Right.
what he decides. And
Correct.
I know there are guidelines as far as what can be discussed and cannot be discussed.
correct.
And legal advice is one of those, and that's what we are asking, are the legal questions, and that's why I think Tessa was saying,
Okay.
I just remembered for some reason we had talked about it
Right.
last time, talking
because
about an
it
executive
opens up to
session.
where there can be more free discussion.
I got a feeling Mr. Root's not gonna give us legal advice.
Well, I think that we might get some clarity if we just if I talk to Andy about this case. He probably is familiar, and we might just get some clarity on that and how the Conservation Bank ordinance, like legally, because in the ordinance, it does say if you give the money back, you can take the easement off. But that time frame, I think, is the sticking point here. Why did they get to remove the easement before the money got returned? Is
Or
that
the
your,
own-
kind of your sticking point?
Well, yeah, and I mean, and the landowner had to
And
go through a
notifying
process.
the landowner.
You know, there's a process. You read the questionnaires on conservation easements. It says, is this money going to be, you agree this money is going to be used for an easement, yes or no? It's check boxes. Yes. Well, 2 months later, it wasn't. I don't know. It's just, there needs to be some clarity, some real clarity, because you're dealing with a governmental body advising somebody about their land who is a private landowner. I don't think Mr. Root's gonna give us any advice when it comes to us giving advice to a private landowner. I wouldn't.
I don't think he is either, but I think we need to know, like Tessa said, we need to know, like I've read the ordinance that governs the Conservation Bank Board, just like there's an ordinance that governs our board, and we're advisory. And really and truly, you ask the question, are we going to support conservation easements? To stay in our lane, our ordinance, can you pull up our ordinance? Can you pull up the Oconee County Advisory Board ordinance? If not, it's okay. No, it's okay. All I was gonna say is, it's very short and simple. Our mission and our statement is to advise, keep our ear to the ground on what's going on with the farmers. And I think part of that is farmland protection, and to advise, we actually answer, I've always asked, do we answer straight to the council, or do we answer straight to planning?
Well, it says that we
Because-
answer to the council.
Yes, it says council, but then we've been called to planning, which is fine. I'll answer to whoever, because it's public, it don't matter to me. But and I think that's where our role comes in, is that we have got to keep our ear to the ground on what is going on in the farming community, in the ag community, in our various districts, and then do our part to promote the farmers, our local production, and all of that to the best of our ability. But like District 1 is completely different from District 2 because Tessa and I know the Moxleys, it's close to y'all's heart because we've talked about the Nevilles too, and we have a lot of that in District 1 as well. But one thing that we haven't discussed a lot about is our timber basket, and our loggers are getting hit terrible. I mean, it's like we need something to get them back on track.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when pulp is being just mulched or destroyed or burnt, it just is not, that's not a good day for any of us. And so,
Yeah, so in regards to advising and who we're advising the council on matters that concern farmers. Conservation land loss is a huge issue affecting farmers, and it's something they talk about. We've gone out in the districts. This is something they have vocalized many times, land loss development. So Conservation Bank, when we advised council with our letter, we advised them that the Conservation Bank should be utilized for permanent land conservation or be funded better was really what the main takeaway was, because agricultural conservation is something that farmers really in this county are concerned about. So we were taking the farmers' interests and translating that to an issue that was ongoing with this ordinance being changed to the funds being kind of scattered around to a lot of different other things that didn't represent farmers. So we were, I would say, following our ordinance pretty close. And with the Conservation Bank, with this thing that you found, that does call into question just the being sure about that the Conservation Bank has been following their.
Yeah.
But we can't be the oversight committee for the Conservation Bank, but it is good to know that this
Which-
stuff is going on.
Which is kind of my point. If we had hypothetically 10 farmers sitting right there and say, we just don't know what to do with our land, can you advise us?
When we
and
say
we're
put
gonna
it
say
in a conservation is a great thing. You could say deeds, but you don't have to say it as a ag board member. You could just say it as someone with, when we're advising county. That's our
it
ordinance.
says straight there that we are to advise county council, correct, on what basically, the long and short of it is, what is happening in the agricultural community.
Yeah.
And, education is another big piece. I think timber is another huge piece. I mean, we've lost an industry there. It'd be like our poultry farmers losing,
Yeah. Timber's
an
big across the whole
integrator.
state.
Yeah, it would be like them losing an integrator. That's basically what's happened in our timber industry and our timber basket. So, I think we have to be I think getting advice, I think you're correct. I think Chess is on the right track to invite Attorney Smith to the meeting. We can probably get the questions we need to get answered.
Yeah, because we're talking about stuff that's legal stuff is what we're all talking about right now.
Right.
And I'm not an attorney.
Right.
But I do like to research things when,
Right.
for my own benefit.
Right, and then I think that's where we go from there, and maybe send the questions and see what Mr. Root says, see what Mr. Smith says. I think Tessa is correct. He was on that board at that time. He would have the answers that we're looking for.
Yeah, I saw his name on that board when they approved to take the conservation easement off.
Now, just because things didn't happen, and I think he can answer, there may be underlying circumstances that reading the report don't tell us. There's always 3 sides to every story. There's this side, and then you're gonna find the truth somewhere right in that middle, and it's not gonna be on either side of that, thing.
Because,
So
when
we-
we're dealing with money, we're dealing with large sums of money.
And there's where the accountability comes into the
Yeah.
public, because that board is under a county ordinance. And so I agree 100%. We need answers for
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah, and I, like I said earlier, what if we had 500 farmers today want to apply for a conservation easement? What would we do? I mean, we wouldn't do anything because there's not no money in there to do it.
Right. I think conservation I mean, protecting the farmers, protecting the land, I think that is huge part of what we're supposed to do. But, you know, our ordinance clearly tells us, you know, we're to keep our ear to the ground. And I know y'all probably tired of me bringing up timber, but that is one thing that I see is a huge problem, is our timber industry has taken a hit, and we've been hit for about 2 years, 2.5 years. And I wish there was a way to fix it. There's not a good fix overnight. I know there's been several things talked about, but somehow we've got to fix it.
What do you know off the top of your head that would fix it? I mean, is there anything that's top of your head that the government could do to help the timber industry?
Okay, I don't want to get,
We get into the weeds, we talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
You got me curious,
Blue Ridge
Kim.
Electric,
well,
pellet.
yes,
Burning
that you're
pellets for
exactly
electricity
correct.
and,
I
yeah.
think that the best thing that could happen to our timber industry right this minute, I do think that they have done well. I think Charlie and them's done a great job. They've all kind of gotten those backup generators, and they've got it for their poultry houses in case the grid goes down. But I think one thing in our area that could help us more than anything, but it's gonna be a legislative issue, and I think maybe this needs to go to our county council, and they can talk to our legislative delegation. I think they need to look at, if they don't want to deregulate, that's fine. But you need to open up some regulations so that we can have pellet-powered generators. We have enough pulp, we have enough timber being pushed over for these housing developments between here and I-85, Anderson, Powdersville, Easley, that would generate these mills, and it would put power back on the grid, and we wouldn't be in an issue with the grid. But it's going to take a legislative decision from our state. I've been looking at it. I was told the other day who I needed to call. I just haven't had the time to go call them and have a sit-down, but with the blessing of the board, I'd love to go have that sit-down. It's not with any of it was actually someone in the power industry. And I would love to have a sit-down with them, because not only do our loggers need it, but we need it on the grid. And they're doing it in Georgia. Don't they have one in Toccoa? And they have 2 coming online in Livonia, am I correct?
They said if we had them, Blue Ridge would welcome them. I've even talked to one of
But
our
we-
legislators about it, and he said that he was for it. Just putting up small, because Duke Power's, they're out of power. I mean, they can only make so much. But if we had different power, plants around, like Kim said, run off of, the pulp and the pellets, off of the wood,
Which is a
that's a
renewable
no-brainer.
resource.
I mean, yeah, they do consider it green. I mean, but we need it. It is renewable. We need it, and we need it in the worst ways. Because if you think about it, if you had it at that Fairplay substation, if you had one there, and then what's your other one down there, closer to 85, if you had 2 in this county, we wouldn't have to worry about when things go down so much.
That's right.
They could put it back on the grid, and we could go. I know it's not the answer to everything, but it sure would help. I think it would be and I think, because y'all gonna think I'm crazy, and riding around looking at these substations, there's enough room. They redid the one inside. There is enough room in that substation. They'd have to come out from it, but where there's just parking now. And the same thing there at the crossroads down next to Oakway. If you look, there's enough room to put those generators there. There is enough room to put them there so that they can go back on they could be, use those and put it back on the grid, on those three-phase. And there's a three-phase transmission line coming right through that substation.
And those substations would be funded by the power company? That, in other words, Blue Ridge would be willing to do it if the timber industry
Would
went
go
towards
along.
that product,
I
or that
think
market?
they would. I think the problem we have is with the regulations. Like right now, in our state, we can't do that. We've got to get some, the state statute, I would have to research it more, David, but I think the state statute right this minute does not allow us because we're not deregulated.
Because of the emissions that it produces?
I think it comes out with a lot of things, and I think there was a knee-jerk reaction to whatever happened with, Savannah River, is that right? It wasn't Santee, it was Savannah River.
Savannah.
Whatever happened with that Savannah River project, I think there was a knee-jerk reaction, and we're not gonna get deregulation, but I think they've got to look at something. And my reasoning for looking at it is not only would it help the poultry farmers, but it would help everybody in the community, but it would also help our timber basket. It would give our loggers somewhere to sell to.
Charlie, you've got one that's fired with pellets?
No,
Oh.
he's got just a generator.
Oh, just, okay.
No, let's have a regular generator.
Well, let's lead off the next meeting with timber on the agenda, okay? And
I'm gonna
continue-
invite Mr. Smith to the next meeting too.
Okay.
See if he can come.
And
Between
Yes.
those two, I think that's enough.
yeah,
talking.
I think between those two topics, that's gonna fill it up. But I will do my research and I will talk to the people that I was informed to talk to. And I'll try to come back with maybe some positive news.
Good,
You know-
good. And y'all will invite Mr. Root, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll just need to get us,
We need to give you topics.
and be
Sim-
specific so that he can, specific things that y'all are wanting to discuss.
And Ed, thank you for pulling that up. But I think that kind of answers where we are supposed to be.
You know, that number 5 that we were looking at right there, you know, we're supposed to make aware of any problems that's coming up. Education and public awareness for agriculture-related topics. Well, we've been told, I've been on the Farm Bureau Board of Directors forever, and we've been told to put our boots on the ground, it's coming. And it's come, everywhere. We're losing farmland, and it's up to us to advise people, hey, this is happening. We're losing farmland to housing developments and whatever,
And that's another
Yeah.
reason for needing the power on the grid, is we don't have enough power to.
Another thing too, I think we need to really educate, because I've been to 2 different farmers. One had 150 acres and another had 100. And they were all for putting it in the land trust with the Farm Bureau until they talked to their kids. And their kids are scared to death that they're gonna not be able to do anything on it or whatever. And I tried to explain to them, you can sell it if, just say for instance, later on down the road, if a guy wants to, just say, build a house right in the middle of it, of 100 acres, and just have pasture or whatever, or have farm or whatever, he can do it. And they can name their price. They think they're gonna lose so much money. And I think right now, we're at a rocking point on land. Land's gonna start going the other way, I'm pretty sure.
It is trending more, you're seeing more people interested in buying land with an easement on it.
Yeah, 'cause they're, I
It's not,
agree.
it's more,
Yeah.
it's becoming more valuable because of the loss of,
Because of the fact it can't be development
Because it's
and there's
beautiful.
not any more land around and people are willing to pay a higher price.
yeah.
But
Well,
they
a bigger picture
But
is,
those kids can name their own price, they want for that land, even though it has easement, on it, it can't be built to anything, but it's gotta stay agriculture, but
yeah.
a
That's
lot of people's
definitely
looking for that.
You're right,
Oh.
Charlie.
We'll continue that next week too, next month also. Farmland protection, timber industry, farmland protection, including Mr. Root and Mr. Smith. And there any room for any more topics next time, or that's two big ones?
You might want to put on there update farm center meeting, and then that way we can have it finalized, if you don't mind.
We'll put farm center update and signage also, in case I can find some info on signage. Okay, and just be sure and send somebody your topics for Mr. Root and Mr. Smith.
Can we get a better
Specifics.
fret clock?
Yeah, make a motion.
Can we get a better fret clock?
I know.
Every time I look, I think,
Five.
That one's putting us about 16 minutes over, so that's why I'm trying to.
motion
Good one to
to,
watch.
Good discussion, good discussion.
I make a motion to